My name is Rachel Thompson. I'm 34 years old, and this is the story of how my father handed my sister the keys to our $200 million tech company, only to call me in panic when she lost our biggest client worth $8 million. You see, for 8 years, I built our company's entire technical infrastructure from scratch, while my sister Victoria was getting her MBA at Harvard. The day she graduated, Dad made her COO. The day she signed that disastrous contract without my review, he tried to make me the scapegoat in front of our entire board. What he didn't know was that 5 years earlier, I'd negotiated something into our investment terms that would change everything. Before we dive into what happened in that boardroom, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with stories about standing up for your worth in the face of family betrayal. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Drop it in the comments below. Now, let me take you back to 6 months ago when this whole disaster began. 6 months ago, I was exactly where I'd been for 8 years, in my office at 2 a.m., debugging code that would become the backbone of our platform. I joined Dad's startup when it was just him, me, and a dream to revolutionize supply chain logistics through AI. While my friends were out living their 20s, I was writing algorithms that would eventually process $50 million in transactions daily. Dad always introduced me the same way at investor meetings. This is Rachel, our technical genius. She doesn't understand the business side, but boy, can she code. That stung every time, but I swallowed it. After all, my code had taken us from a garage startup to a company worth $200 million. Then Victoria graduated from Harvard Business School. The announcement came via company-wide email on a Monday morning. Effective immediately, Victoria Thompson joins us as Chief Operating Officer, reporting directly to me. No interview process, no discussion with the board. Just pure nepotism, wrapped in a press release about bringing fresh strategic thinking to our leadership team. I remember our first executive meeting with Victoria at the helm. She'd prepared a 40-slide deck about synergistic market penetration and leveraging core competencies. When I asked about the technical feasibility of her proposed timeline, she laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Rachel, that's why we have you. To figure out the how. I handle the what and the why." The room went quiet. Board members exchanged glances. Marcus Chen, our chief legal officer, cleared his throat but said nothing. Jennifer Walsh from Apex Ventures, our lead investor, typed something on her phone. But nobody challenged her. Nobody challenged him. That night, while Victoria celebrated her first day with champagne at a trendy downtown bar, I was in the server room, implementing the security protocols she'd promised a client without checking if we had the infrastructure. The signs were everywhere, if you knew where to look. In every strategy meeting, Victoria would present her vision, while I sat silent, calculator in hand, mentally tallying the technical debt she was creating. When I'd speak up, "We need 6 months minimum for that integration," Dad would pat my shoulder. "Rachel's being conservative, as usual. Victoria, proceed with your timeline." It became a pattern. Victoria would promise. I would warn. Dad would override. The breaking point came during our quarterly board meeting. Victoria announced she'd identified a game-changing opportunity with Megacorp, potentially worth $8 million annually. The board lit up. Dollar signs practically danced in their eyes. When I asked to review the technical requirements, Victoria brushed me off with 5 words that would later haunt her. "I've got this handled, Rachel." I watched our senior engineers' faces during her presentation. Tom, who'd been with us since year 2, was shaking his head. Sarah, our lead architect, was furiously scribbling notes. I could see "impossible" underlined 3 times from where I sat. But when the floor opened for questions, they looked at me, then at Dad's proud face as he beamed at Victoria and stayed silent. That afternoon, I found 3 resignation letters on my desk. "We can't work like this," Tom's letter read. "But we know you can't fight this alone." They were right. I couldn't fight it alone. But what I could do was prepare for the inevitable disaster. That evening, I pulled out a document most people had forgotten existed, our Series B investment terms from 5 years ago. The email came at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday, marked urgent. Organizational restructuring. My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips as I read. To optimize our operational efficiency, all technical decisions will now require approval from the COO's office before implementation. Translation: Victoria would now oversee everything I did. I wasn't the only one who saw the insanity of it. Within minutes, my Slack exploded. She doesn't even know what an API is, one developer wrote. Last week she asked if we could download more RAM, another added. But the most telling message came from Marcus Chen, our chief legal officer. Rachel, we need to talk, in person, today. The meeting with Marcus was brief but loaded. He slid a folder across his desk, our original investment documents, with several sections highlighted in yellow. I'm not telling you what to do, he said carefully, but you should know your rights. Section 7.3 specifically. He paused, choosing his words like a lawyer who knew the walls had ears. Some clauses in here, people seem to have forgotten they exist. I spent that night reading every line of that document. 5 years ago, when we were desperate for Series B funding, I'd been the one to meet with investors, explain our technology, defend our valuations. Jennifer Walsh from Apex Ventures had insisted on one unusual clause, one that gave the CTO veto power over any technical commitments exceeding $5 million. You're the brain behind this operation, she told me then. This protects the company from anyone who might not understand what you've built. Everyone had forgotten about that clause. Everyone except Marcus Chen. If I stayed silent, the damage would ripple far beyond my bruised ego. Our technical team, 52 engineers I'd personally recruited, mentored, and built into one of the strongest in the industry, was already crumbling. 3 resignation letters had become 7. Our senior architects were taking calls from recruiters during lunch. The junior developers who once stayed late to solve complex problems now left at 5 p.m. sharp. Why should we care if leadership doesn't? Sarah, our lead architect, asked me point blank during our one-on-one. Victoria promised megacorp features we literally cannot build with our current infrastructure. When this explodes, who do you think will get blamed? Not the CEO's daughter. She was right. The technical team would become the scapegoats. Their reputations would be tarnished. The infrastructure I'd spent 8 years building, every carefully crafted API, every meticulously documented system, would be handed over to consultants who'd charge triple and deliver half. But it went deeper than professional pride. This company was my life's work. Every line of code contained a piece of my 20s and early 30s. While my college friends were getting married, having kids, building normal lives, I was building this. The algorithms running our core platform were my babies. The patents filed under the company name were my innovations. And then there was the uncomfortable truth about our clients. They trusted our technology because they trusted me. I'd been the face of our technical capabilities at every major pitch. My signature was on every security audit. My reputation backed every promise we made about uptime, scalability, and data protection. Marcus Chen knew this. Jennifer Walsh knew this. Hell, even some board members knew this. But admitting it would mean acknowledging that the CEO's daughter, with her fresh MBA and zero technical knowledge, wasn't qualified to oversee a technical organization. The folder Marcus had given me felt heavier each time I looked at it. Section 7.3 stared back at me, highlighted in yellow, waiting. The question wasn't whether I'd need to use it. The question was when. Your sister needs this opportunity, Rachel. Don't be selfish. Mom's words echoed through our family dinner that Sunday, the one Dad insisted we never miss. Victoria sat across from me, glowing as she recounted her week's victories to our parents. Each achievement she listed was something my team had actually delivered while she took credit in meetings. The Megacorp deal is practically signed, she announced, cutting into her steak. $8 million, can you believe it? This will put us on the map. Dad raised his wineglass. To Victoria, proving that an MBA from Harvard was worth every penny. I didn't raise my glass. Mom noticed. Later, while Victoria helped Dad with dishes, a performance of family harmony, Mom cornered me on the back porch. "I know this is hard for you," she said, not meeting my eyes. "You've always been competitive with your sister." Competitive? The word tasted bitter. "Mom, I built—" "I know what you think you built," she interrupted. "But your father built this company, and he decides who runs what. Victoria is family. She deserves your support." That's when I realized the cost of silence wasn't just professional. If I let this continue, I'd lose my family's respect entirely. I'd forever be the jealous older sister who couldn't celebrate Victoria's success. The narrative was already being written, and I was cast as the villain. That night, I found another folder on my desk, slipped under my door while I was at dinner. No note, but I recognized Jennifer Walsh's handwriting on the post-it. Board Meeting Minutes, 2020, page 47. Page 47 contained the board's unanimous approval of the CTO veto clause, with every member's signature, including my father's. At the bottom, Jennifer had added one line in her distinctive handwriting. "A good leader knows when to use their power. A great leader knows why they earned it in the first place." The pieces were falling into place. The question was, would I have the courage to play them? Monday morning, 9:47 a.m. Victoria burst into the executive meeting room, practically vibrating with excitement. "I closed Megacorp!" She slammed a folder on the conference table. $8 million contract signed this morning." The room erupted in congratulations. Dad stood up, pride radiating from every pore. "That's my girl. When do we start delivery?" 6 weeks, Victoria beamed. "I promised them our full AI suite integrated with their legacy systems." My stomach dropped. "Victoria, did legal review this?" She waved dismissively. "I handle business, you handle code." "But their legacy system is COBOL-based from the 1980s. We don't have—" "Rachel," Dad's voice cut through, "your sister just landed our biggest client. Try being supportive for once." I opened my laptop, pulled up our technical specifications. "Victoria, look at this. What you promised would require a complete infrastructure overhaul. We're talking minimum 8 months, not 6 weeks." "Then hire more developers," she shrugged. "That's what the budget is for." "You can't just throw bodies at—" "Meeting adjourned," Dad announced. "Victoria, fantastic work. Rachel, I need a plan on my desk by end of day for how you'll deliver this." As everyone filed out, Marcus Chen lingered. He glanced at the contract Victoria had left on the table, then at me. His expression said everything. "This is it." Tom, my senior engineer, was waiting outside. "Please tell me she didn't promise them real-time COBOL integration." I showed him the contract. He went pale. "We're screwed, aren't we?" he asked. Not we, I thought. She. 2 weeks into the Megacorp project, the impossible became undeniable. Victoria had promised them features that existed only in her imagination. Real-time data migration from their 40-year-old mainframes, AI-powered predictive analytics on unstructured COBOL data. And, this was the killer, guaranteed 100% uptime during the transition. She promised them what? Sarah, our lead architect, stared at the requirements document like it might spontaneously combust. "It gets worse," Tom added, pulling up his laptop. "She told them we'd have a working prototype by Friday. This Friday." The entire technical team gathered in our war room, the whiteboard covered in increasingly desperate calculations. Every approach we mapped hit the same wall. What Victoria promised was technically impossible with our current infrastructure and timeline. "Can we hack something together?" a junior developer suggested. "Just for the demo?" "And when it fails in production?" I asked. "When Megacorp's entire system crashes because we built on a foundation of lies?" That's when my phone buzzed. Marcus Chen. "Megacorp's legal team is asking about our liability insurance. They're thorough." I made a decision. "Everyone, document everything. Every impossible requirement, Every shortcut Victoria demands, every warning you give, email trails, Slack messages, everything. You think this will blow up? Sarah asked. I know it will. Thursday night, 11 p.m. Victoria stormed into my office. Where's the prototype? The demo is tomorrow. There is no prototype. What you promised is impossible. Nothing's impossible if you work hard enough, she snapped. Maybe if you spent less time documenting and more time coding. Victoria, I'm trying to protect you. Call Megacorp, renegotiate. Tell them you need more time. She laughed. I don't need protection from my older sister. I need you to do your job. She'd learned soon enough that some things can't be fixed with an MBA and confidence. Friday's demo was a massacre in slow motion. Victoria had insisted on hosting it at Megacorp's headquarters, in front of their entire executive team. She'd even invited 2 board members to witness her triumph. What they witnessed instead was a system crash so spectacular it took down Megacorp's test environment for 6 hours. The call came at 4 p.m. from Megacorp's chief technology officer. I put him on speaker in Dad's office. Your system just corrupted 3 months of our test data, his voice was ice. Our legal team is reviewing the contract. This is beyond unacceptable. Dad's face went from red to white. There must be some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. Your COO promised capabilities you don't have. We're not just terminating the contract. We're considering legal action for misrepresentation. After he hung up, the silence was deafening. Victoria stood frozen. Her usual confidence evaporated. Dad turned to me, and I saw it in his eyes. He was already formulating how to blame this on the technical team. Emergency board meeting, he announced. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Full attendance required. As I left his office, Marcus Chen was waiting in the hallway. Did you document everything? Every email, every warning, every impossible promise. He nodded. Good. You'll need it. That night, I received a text from Jennifer Walsh. I'll be at tomorrow's meeting. Some things need to be said publicly. The stage was set, $8 million gone, a lawsuit pending, and Dad was about to throw me under the bus to save his golden child. He had no idea what was coming. If you've ever been in a situation where your work was undervalued or your expertise dismissed, you know exactly how I felt in that moment. The frustration, the injustice, the exhausting weight of being right but unheard. It's something too many of us face. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Drop a comment below. I read every single one, and your stories of similar experiences keep me going. What happened next in that boardroom changed everything. But first, let me tell you about something I'd negotiated 5 years earlier. 5 years ago, we were desperate. The Series A money was running out, and without Series B funding, Dad's dream would die. He was too proud to admit it, but I saw the bills, the burn rate, the 3 months of runway left. Jennifer Walsh from Apex Ventures was our last hope. She'd turned us down twice already. But she agreed to one final meeting, with one condition. She wanted to meet with the technical founder, alone. Your father builds relationships, she told me over coffee. Your sister, still in school, sells dreams. But you build reality. Show me what's real. For 3 hours, I walked her through our architecture, our patents, our algorithmic advantages. She asked questions that cut to the bone of our technology. No fluff, no promises, just capabilities and limitations. I'll invest, she finally said. 20 million. But I have one non-negotiable condition. She pulled out a term sheet, pointing to a clause she'd added in red ink. The CTO must approve any technical commitment over $5 million. Not the CEO, not the COO when you eventually hire one, the CTO. My father won't like that, I said. Your father needs this money, she replied. And I need to protect my investment from people who don't understand what they're selling. Dad fought it for a week. But with payroll due and no other options, he signed. The board approved unanimously. They needed Jennifer's money too badly to argue. This clause will never matter, Dad told me that night. We're family. We make decisions together. But Jennifer knew better. Before leaving, she pulled me aside. Power isn't given, Rachel. It's negotiated and documented. Remember that. 5 years later, sitting in my office before the emergency board meeting, I finally understood what she meant. The morning of the board meeting, two separate conversations changed everything. Marcus Chen appeared in my office at 7 a.m., earlier than I'd ever seen him. "I've reviewed the Megacorp contract," he said, placing a legal brief on my desk. "Victoria never sent it to legal for review. She signed it herself, without proper authority." "What does that mean?" "It means she violated corporate governance protocols. But more importantly," he flipped to a highlighted section, "any technical commitment over 5 million requires your signature. This contract doesn't have it." My heart raced. So the contract is void, legally void. Megacorp can't sue us for a contract that was never valid. An hour later, Jennifer Walsh called. "Rachel, I've spoken with 3 other board members. We're concerned about the governance failures this situation represents." "Concerned enough to do something about it?" "The board has obligations beyond family loyalty," she said carefully. "We have a fiduciary duty to all shareholders. When someone violates that duty, we must act. Even if that someone is the CEO's daughter? Especially then." She paused. "Do you remember what I told you 5 years ago? About power being negotiated and documented?" "Yes. Today, you'll see why I insisted on that clause. The board voted unanimously to approve it, including your father. That vote is documented in the minutes. Page 47 if you're curious." After she hung up, I sat in my quiet office, watching the sunrise over the city. In 2 hours, Dad would try to sacrifice me to save Victoria. He'd count on my silence, my family loyalty, my history of swallowing unfairness. He was about to learn that even the quiet ones have limits, and more importantly, that sometimes the quiet ones have power. The boardroom filled quickly. 12 board members, 5 investors, 2 legal counsels, and an executive assistant furiously typing notes. The projector blazed with red text. "Megacorp crisis. 8 Miller contract terminated." Victoria entered like she was walking to her execution, her usual designer confidence replaced with visible panic. She'd prepared slides, dozens of them, each attempting to shift blame without accepting responsibility. "The technical team failed to deliver on the promises," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "Despite having adequate resources and time, they couldn't execute the integration." I sat silent, watching board members' faces. Some looked sympathetic to Victoria. Others glanced at me with what looked like pity. They all assumed they knew how this would end. "Furthermore," Victoria continued, clicking through slides of missed deadlines she'd set without consulting anyone. "There was a clear lack of communication between departments. Tom and Sarah, who'd been asked to attend, shifted uncomfortably. They'd worked 18-hour days trying to achieve the impossible. Now they were being thrown under the bus in front of everyone who mattered." "This is unacceptable," board member Richard Hayes interrupted. "How did we promise something we couldn't deliver?" Victoria's eyes darted to Dad. He stood, his CEO authority filling the room. "The failure here is systemic," Dad announced, his voice grave. "And as CEO, I must ensure accountability." My stomach tightened. Here it came. Our technical leadership should have flagged these impossibilities earlier. They should have prevented this contract from being signed. "But Robert," Jennifer Walsh interjected, "didn't Victoria sign this contract?" "With the expectation that our CTO would ensure technical feasibility," Dad replied smoothly. "That's her job." The room turned to me, 17 pairs of eyes, waiting for my defense or my resignation. Marcus Chen was checking his phone, his expression carefully neutral. The trap was set. "As CEO, I must hold our CTO accountable for this failure," Dad continued, his voice heavy with manufactured disappointment. "Rachel had multiple opportunities to review this contract, to raise concerns, to prevent this disaster." "I did raise concerns," I said quietly, "multiple times. In writing." Dad's jaw tightened. Concerns aren't enough when $8 million is at stake. You should have escalated. To whom? You dismissed every technical concern I raised. This isn't about finger pointing, he said, though that's exactly what it was. This is about accountability. The technical team, under your leadership, failed to deliver. Board member Richard Hayes leaned forward. Robert, what are you proposing? Dad straightened his tie, a tell he had when delivering bad news. Given the magnitude of this failure and the potential legal ramifications, I believe we need new technical leadership. Gasps rippled through the room. Tom and Sarah looked murderous. Even some board members seemed shocked at the boldness of the scapegoating. Victoria finally spoke, her voice small. Maybe we should discuss this as a family first. This is beyond family, Dad cut her off. This is about the company's survival. Marcus Chen kept glancing at his phone, then at me, then at Jennifer Walsh. Something passed between them, a silent communication I couldn't read. So you're asking Rachel to resign? Jennifer Walsh's voice was dangerously calm. I'm asking her to do what's best for the company, Dad replied. To take responsibility. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Everyone waited for my response. Would I fight? Would I cry? Would I simply accept my fate like I'd accepted every other injustice? Marcus Chen stood up. Before Rachel responds, he said, pulling out a thick folder, I need to present something to the board. Marcus, this isn't the time, Dad started. Actually, Robert, this is exactly the time. Marcus's voice carried an authority I'd never heard before. Before we discuss anyone's resignation, the board needs to understand the full situation. Dad's face reddened. The situation is clear. We lost $8 million due to technical incompetence. No, Marcus said firmly. We lost $8 million due to a contract that should never have been signed. He opened his folder, pulling out documents. Victoria, did you send this contract to legal for review? Victoria's face went pale. It was time sensitive. Yes or no? No. Did you consult with the technical team about feasibility? Rachel was busy. Yes or no? No. The board members were leaning forward now, sensing a shift in the room's dynamics. Robert, Marcus continued, turning to my father, as CEO, did you review this contract before Victoria signed it? I trusted my COO's judgment, Dad said, but his voice had lost its earlier authority. So neither you nor legal nor technical reviewed an $8 million contract? Board member Hayes asked, incredulous. The silence was deafening. Dad recovered quickly, his years of boardroom experience showing. Regardless of the process failures, the fact remains that our CTO should have prevented this. Rachel, he turned to me, his eyes holding a warning. For the good of the company, I'm asking you to step down. The words hit like a physical blow, even though I'd expected them. My own father, publicly demanding my resignation for his favorite daughter's mistake. Jennifer Walsh started to speak, but Marcus held up his hand. There's one more thing the board needs to know, he said, flipping to a specific page in his folder. Section 7.3 of our Series B investment terms. Dad went absolutely still. Marcus Chen's voice filled the boardroom with the measured cadence of a prosecutor presenting evidence. Section 7.3 of our Series B investment terms, approved unanimously by this board 5 years ago, states, any client commitment, technical specification, or contract exceeding $5 million in value requires the explicit written approval and signature of the Chief Technology Officer. The room went silent. You could hear the air conditioning humming. Marcus continued, this $8 million contract with Megacorp bears Victoria Thompson's signature as COO. It bears Robert Thompson's signature as CEO. He paused, looking directly at me. It does not bear Rachel Thompson's signature as CTO. That's a technicality, Dad started. It's not a technicality, Marcus interrupted. It's a legally binding governance requirement. This contract is void. It has been void from the moment Victoria signed it. Board member Hayes grabbed the document, scanning it rapidly. This is real? This clause exists? Page 47 of the board minutes from our Series B funding round. Jennifer Walsh spoke up, producing her own copy. We voted on it unanimously. Robert, you voted yes. You signed this. Victoria's hands were shaking. I didn't. Nobody told me about this clause. It's in the corporate governance handbook, Marcus said. The one every executive is required to read and sign acknowledgement of. Victoria, did you read it? I I was going to. The board members were now passing the documents around, their expressions shifting from confusion to understanding to something approaching anger. So, you're telling us, Richard Hayes said slowly, that not only was this contract signed without proper review, but it was signed without the legal authority to do so? Correct, Marcus confirmed. Megacorp has no grounds to sue us. The contract was never valid. The liability sits entirely with the individual who exceeded their authority, not with the company. Dad's face had gone from red to white. He was looking at me with an expression I'd never seen before, fear mixed with dawning comprehension. You knew, he whispered. You knew this would happen. Jennifer Walsh stood, her presence commanding the room's attention. I need to add some context the board should understand. 5 years ago, when Apex Ventures led the Series B round, I insisted on this clause. Does anyone want to know why? The room waited, tension thick. Because I'd watched 3 other portfolio companies fail when non-technical executives made technical promises they couldn't keep. I invested $20 million in this company, not in Robert's relationships, not in Victoria's MBA, but in the technical infrastructure Rachel built. She turned to the board. We all knew Rachel was the technical genius behind this company. We also knew she was being sidelined in favor of family politics. This clause was our insurance policy. You set us up, Victoria said, her voice cracking. No, Jennifer replied sharply. You set yourself up. You had 6 months as COO to learn the governance requirements. You chose not to. You had Rachel available to review the contract. You chose not to consult her. You had legal available. You ignored them too. Board member Susan Martinez, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. I'm looking at the email trail Marcus forwarded. Rachel, you warned about this contract 17 times. 17 documented warnings that Victoria and Robert ignored. She pulled up her tablet, reading, quote, this timeline is technically impossible. Quote, we need minimum 8 months for COBOL integration. Quote, please have legal review before signing. Quote, I have not approved this contract. Each quote landed like a hammer blow. Victoria sank lower in her chair with each one. And this one, Susan continued, sent the night before the demo. For the record, I cannot and will not sign off on this contract as it violates our technical capabilities and our governance protocols. Why didn't you tell me about the clause? Dad demanded, looking at me. Jennifer answered for me. She tried, Robert. There are 3 emails where Rachel specifically referenced Section 7.3. You responded to exactly none of them. Richard Hayes, the senior-most board member, stood slowly. His voice carried decades of boardroom authority. Robert, this is a governance crisis. Your daughter operated outside her authority, ignored corporate protocols, and exposed us to massive liability, and you enabled it. The contract is void, Dad protested weakly. There's no liability. The reputational damage is done. Hayes cut him off. Megacorp is telling everyone we're incompetent. Our other clients are asking questions. And now we learn it's because your COO, who you hired without proper process, didn't even read the governance handbook? The other board members were nodding. The tide had turned completely. I move for an immediate vote, Jennifer announced, on restructuring our executive team to prevent future governance failures. You can't, Dad started. Actually, we can, Hayes interrupted. Section 4.2 of the corporate bylaws. The board has full authority to restructure in cases of fiduciary breach. Victoria found her voice. This is Rachel's fault. She should have stopped me. The room turned to her in disbelief. She tried to stop you. Tom, my senior engineer, spoke for the first time. We all did. You told us you didn't need technical input. You told us you handled the business side. Sarah added, We have recordings of the meetings where you dismissed our concerns. Should we play them? Marcus Chen pulled up one final document. There's one more thing. Given that the contract was signed without proper authority, Victoria may be personally liable for Megacorp's damages, not the company. Victoria's face went white. What? When you exceed corporate authority, you lose corporate protection, Marcus explained. That's Corporate Law 101. Didn't they teach that at Harvard? The boardroom was dead silent, except for the sound of Victoria's sharp intake of breath. Jennifer looked at me. Rachel, you've been very quiet. What do you think should happen here? Sometimes power isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about knowing your worth, documenting your value, and understanding the rules better than those who try to bypass them. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever had to stand up for your expertise against family politics or office favoritism, please subscribe. I share these stories because I know how isolating it can feel when you're fighting these battles alone. Now, let me tell you how I handled this moment when everyone was waiting for my response, and why I chose professional grace over personal revenge. Every eye in the room focused on me. This was my moment for revenge, to demand Victoria's termination, to watch Dad squirm. The old Rachel might have stayed silent. The bitter Rachel might have gone for blood, but I wasn't either of those anymore. I don't want my sister fired, I said calmly. I want governance that protects our company's future. The room stirred, surprised. Rachel? Jennifer started. Let me finish, I continued, standing for the first time. Victoria made a mistake, a costly one, but she made it because our system allowed it, because we've been operating on relationships instead of rules, on favoritism instead of expertise. I pulled out my laptop, connecting it to the projector. I've prepared a restructuring proposal, not out of vengeance, but out of necessity. The slide appeared. Technical Governance Framework. First, all technical commitments require technical review, no exceptions. Second, the COO and CTO roles must have clearly defined, separate responsibilities. Third, any executive who signs contracts outside their authority faces immediate review. That's reasonable, Hayes nodded. Fourth, I continued, looking at Victoria, the current COO enters a 6-month technical training program. She learns our systems, our capabilities, our limitations. She shadows the technical team. She earns her authority through knowledge, not nepotism. Victoria's eyes widened. It wasn't termination, it was education. Fifth, I turned to Dad. The CEO reports to the board monthly on all contracts over 1 million. Full transparency. No more surprise announcements. Dad's jaw clenched, but he nodded slightly. And finally, I said, we hire an independent chief operating officer from outside the family. Victoria can be deputy COO during her training, then we reassess. The board members were nodding, some even smiling. This isn't about punishment, I concluded. It's about building a company that survives beyond family drama. We're worth $200 million. It's time we acted like it. Jennifer Walsh started clapping. One by one, others joined. I moved to adopt Rachel's proposal immediately, Hayes announced. Seconded, 3 board members said simultaneously. All in favor? 12 hands raised. Even Marcus Chen looked impressed. Dad raised his hand last, defeated but perhaps for the first time, seeing me clearly. The vote was unanimous. 12-0. The restructuring would take effect immediately. Furthermore, Richard Hayes added, I move that Rachel Thompson be elevated to co-CEO, focusing on technical strategy and operations, while we search for an external, business-focused co-CEO. The motion passed 11-1. Dad was the only dissent. As the board members filed out, each stopped to shake my hand. Should have done this years ago, Susan Martinez whispered. Your father's a good salesman, but this company runs on your code. Victoria remained frozen in her chair, staring at the table. When the room emptied except for family and Marcus, she finally spoke. I could be personally sued? Marcus nodded. Potentially. But Megacorp seems more interested in salvaging a relationship than pursuing litigation, if we approach them correctly. How? Dad asked, his CEO bravado completely deflated. I answered. We tell them the truth. The contract was invalid. We offer them a realistic proposal with proper technical review. And we give them a discount for the inconvenience, maybe a $2 million pilot program to start. You'd help? Victoria asked, tears threatening. After everything? You're my sister, I said simply. But you're also an executive who needs to learn. This isn't charity. You'll earn your place, or you'll lose it. Your choice. Dad stood abruptly and walked out without a word. His silence said everything. His golden child had failed, his scapegoat had become his equal, and his empire now had boundaries he couldn't cross. Marcus gathered his papers. Rachel, I'll need you to review all contracts from the last 6 months. Make sure there are no other surprises. Already done, I said, sliding him a folder. 3 need renegotiation. 2 are fine. 1 should be terminated. He smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him. You've been preparing for this. For 5 years, I admitted. As Marcus left, Victoria and I sat alone in the boardroom where she'd been crowned princess 6 months ago and dethroned today. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know, I replied. But sorry isn't enough anymore. Tomorrow you start shadowing my team. 8 a.m. sharp. Dress code is jeans and ready to learn. She nodded, gathering her things. At the door, she paused. Rachel, thank you for not destroying me. You're welcome. Don't make me regret it. Within 48 hours, the company transformation was remarkable. The 3 senior engineers who'd submitted resignations withdrew them. Tom actually smiled for the first time in months. Finally, he said, someone who understands code is calling the shots. Victoria showed up to her first technical training session in jeans and a Harvard t-shirt, a humbling uniform for someone used to designer suits. Sarah, our lead architect, didn't go easy on her. This is a database, Sarah explained with barely concealed satisfaction. Not a magic box where data lives. You need to understand how it works. Before you promise clients we can migrate their entire history in 2 weeks. To Victoria's credit, she took notes, lots of them. The real surprise came from Megacorp. Their CTO, David Chen, no relation to Marcus, called me directly. We heard about your boardroom coup, he said. Honestly, we're relieved. We knew something was off when Victoria couldn't answer basic technical questions. We'd like to salvage this relationship, I offered. So would we. Your technology is solid, Rachel. It was the promises that were fantasy. Send me a real proposal, what you can actually deliver, and we'll start with a pilot. 2 weeks later, we signed a $2 million pilot program with Megacorp. Victoria wasn't allowed near it. The most telling change came from our employees. The engineering team's Glassdoor reviews jumped from 2.8 to 4.6 stars in a month. One anonymous review read, "Finally, someone who writes code is making decisions about code." But the email that meant the most came from Jennifer Walsh. This is why I insisted on that clause 5 years ago. Not to protect my investment from your family, but to protect your brilliance from being buried under their ambition. The company is finally in the right hands. Sunday family dinners became exercises in careful navigation. The first one after the board meeting, Dad didn't show up. He's not feeling well, Mom said, though we all knew the truth. His pride was wounded, perhaps fatally. Week 2, he appeared, but didn't speak to me directly. He talked around me, through Mom, like I was a ghost at the table. Tell Rachel the mashed potatoes are good, he'd say while I sat 3 feet away. Victoria, meanwhile, was transforming. The Harvard MBA swagger had been replaced with genuine curiosity. Rachel, can you explain why our API can't handle parallel processing at scale? She asked over dessert, pulling out her training notebook. Not at dinner, Mom interrupted, but there was something new in her voice. Respect, maybe? Week 3 brought the breakthrough. Dad finally looked at me directly. The board wants quarterly reports on the technical roadmap. I'll have them ready by Monday, I replied. Good. He paused, struggling with the next words. The Megacorp pilot is going well, I hear. Ahead of schedule and under budget. He nodded, returning to his meal. It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement. Mom pulled me aside while doing dishes. I was wrong, she said quietly. I thought you were jealous of Victoria. I didn't realize you were protecting the company from her. From us. I wasn't protecting the company, I corrected. I was protecting what I built. There's a difference. She studied me for a long moment. You're different now. Stronger. No, I said. I'm the same. You're just finally seeing me. That night, Victoria texted me. Dad's been reading books on technical architecture. I saw them in his office. I think he's trying to understand your world. Maybe he was. Or maybe he was just trying to understand how he'd missed what everyone else had started to see. 6 months later, our company was unrecognizable, in the best way. We'd hired James Morrison as co-CEO, a former Microsoft executive who actually understood technology. He and I worked like a well-oiled machine. I handled product and engineering, he handled sales and partnerships. Every major decision required both our signatures. You know what I love about this setup? James told me during our weekly one-on-one. I can promise clients the moon, and you'll tell me exactly why we can only deliver the space station. And that's perfect. Victoria had completed her technical training. She wasn't a programmer, but she understood our capabilities and limitations. More importantly, she'd learned humility. Her new role as VP of Strategic Partnerships, reporting to James, not Dad, actually suited her. She could charm clients, but now she knew what not to promise. The numbers told the story. Revenue up 40% in 6 months. Employee retention at 94%. Client satisfaction scores higher than ever. We just closed Series C, Jennifer Walsh announced at the board meeting. $50 million at a valuation of $300 million. The investors specifically cited the new governance structure as a key factor. Dad, now chairman of the board with limited operational input, managed a small smile. Good work, everyone. After the meeting, he stopped me in the hallway. Rachel. Yes? I've been thinking about succession planning. When I retire in 2 years, the board will need to choose a permanent CEO structure. Okay. He met my eyes. You should know you're the front runner. You and James as permanent co-CEOs. The board trusts you. And you? I asked. Do you trust me? He was quiet for a long moment. I'm learning to. You saved the company from my blindness. That's not easy to admit. It was the closest to an apology I'd ever get. The real victory wasn't the title or the vindication. It was the boundaries I'd learned to set and hold. When Dad tried to bypass the new structure to push a pet project, I held firm. Submit it through the proper channels like everyone else. He did grudgingly. The project was rejected for good reasons, and he accepted it. When Victoria wanted to fast-track a partnership because the CEO was her B-school friend, she came to me first. I know this needs technical review. Can we prioritize it? She'd learned to ask, not demand. When Mom suggested I go easier on family during a particularly tense negotiation, I smiled. I treat family exactly like I treat everyone else, with respect and high standards. That's the kindest thing I can do. The most profound change was in how I saw myself. For years, I'd accepted the narrative that I was just technical, brilliant but limited. Now I understood that technical expertise wasn't a limitation. It was the foundation everything else was built on. You know what changed everything? Marcus Chen asked me over coffee, 6 months into the new structure. You stopped asking for permission to use your power. You just used it. He was right. The clause had always been there. My expertise had always been valuable. The board's respect had always been available. I'd just been too focused on family harmony to claim what was already mine. But here's the thing about power. It's not about domination, it's about protection. Protecting what you've built, protecting your team, protecting the company from those who would damage it through ignorance or ego. Victoria understood this now. I was so angry at first, she admitted during one of our regular one-on-ones. I thought you'd betrayed me, but you saved me from myself. If that contract had gone through, if I'd actually been sued personally, I would have lost everything. You still could have, I reminded her. The board could have fired you. But you didn't let them. No, I agreed. Because destroying you wouldn't have fixed the problem. Teaching you did. She nodded, then surprised me by adding, I'm glad you're co-CEO. The company needs someone who understands what we're actually selling, not just how to sell it. Today, 2 years after that explosive board meeting, I'm CEO of a company valued at $500 million. Not co-CEO anymore. James retired last month, and the board voted unanimously to give me full control. Even Dad voted yes. Victoria is our chief revenue officer, and she's excellent at it. She knows exactly what we can deliver and sells it brilliantly. She still keeps her technical training notebook on her desk, referring to it during client calls. Dad retired as chairman last year. In his farewell speech, he said something that shocked everyone. My greatest accomplishment wasn't building this company. It was hiring Rachel, even if I didn't realize it for far too long. But this story isn't about winning or losing, about family reconciliation or corporate success. It's about something simpler and more important, knowing your worth and protecting it. 5 years before the crisis, I negotiated one clause into a contract. Not because I planned for this specific scenario, but because I knew my value needed protection, even from, especially from, those who claim to love me. Your expertise has value. Your contributions matter. And sometimes the people who should recognize this the most are the ones who see it the least. Document your worth, negotiate your protections, and when the moment comes, because it will come, don't hesitate to use them, not for revenge, but for justice. Not to destroy, but to build something better. The quiet ones, the technical ones, the ones labeled just good at something. We're not just anything. We're the foundation. And foundations, when properly protected, can outlast any storm. My name is Rachel Thompson. 2 years ago, I saved my company from my family's blindness. Today, I run it with clear vision and firm boundaries. Tomorrow? Tomorrow, I build what I was always capable of building, just now with the authority to match my ability. This story isn't unique. Every day, talented people are overlooked, undervalued, and scapegoated by those who should champion them. If you've lived this, you're not alone. Comment: boundaries. If you've ever had to stand up to family in business, share your story. I read every comment and often respond. If this resonated with you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. I share these stories because someone needs to hear that their expertise matters, their boundaries are valid, and their quiet power is real. Thank you for listening. Until next time, remember, document your worth, protect your value, and never apologize for knowing your power.